Uber is illegal in South Korea. Why? Uber entered South Korea in 2014. You know, Uber is basically a platform that allows ordinary people without a taxi license can earn money. But according to Article 34 of South Korea's Passenger Vehicle Transportation Business Act, individuals without a taxi license are prohibited from providing transportation for a fee. In other words, under South Korean law, Uber itself is illegal. So the capital Seoul filed charge against Uber Korea. And then the Seoul City Council even created an Uber reward program. If you report Uber taxi, they'll give you a reward of $1,000 at that time. So eventually, Uber pulled out of South Korea in March 2015. Of course, countries as Switzerland, Hungary, Denmark, and Turkey have banned Uber too. But as recently as 2021, Uber was back in South Korea. What happened? 6 years after leaving the country, but not under the name Uber this time. It's a joint venture between a Korean company called T-Map Mobility and Uber called UT. Yet UT is not profitable in Korea right now, but it's still going strong, and recently they're considering changing the name back to Uber. By the way, taxis in Korea are actually criticized by many people. Compared to other forms of public transportation, such as subways and buses, taxis get a lot of flack. According to the South Korean pollster Realmeter, 37.6% were satisfied and 53.4% were dissatisfied with taxi services. The reason for this dissatisfaction include unnecessary conversation with the driver. This was followed by reckless driving such as speeding and refusal of a ride. In particular, conversation with taxi drivers contribute to dissatisfaction with the service. For example, political conversations are often the most uncomfortable. If a taxi driver suddenly starts talking about the president or make a comment that pushes their political leanings, it can make the entire ride uncomfortable. In the past, I've had taxi drivers who have tried to force me to believe Christianity. Also, taxis in South Korea are not cheap. A standard taxi fare in Korea is 4,800 won. In New York, it's $3. A taxi in Tokyo, one of the most expensive cities in the world, costs 500 yen. So, taxis in Korea are not cheap. A recent controversy in Korean taxi is that hailing a taxi has become a nightmare. Especially during the late night hours in Seoul, 3 out of 4 passengers experienced a failed taxi ride. This phenomenon started in 2023 when the corona pandemic stabilized somewhat. This is because the number of taxi drivers decreased so much. According to the Seoul Metropolitan Government, the number of corporate taxi drivers in Seoul dropped from 30,517 in 2019 to drop by 31.4% to 20,955 in October 2023. This is because many taxi drivers had to quit their jobs to move to food delivery business. So Seoul recently raised the basic fare for taxi. But this hasn't led to more taxi drivers. It's just the Seoul citizens are paying higher fees. In fact, it's very difficult for foreign companies or Korean startups to get into the taxi business in Korea. Of course, there are legal issues, but it's also because the Korean government is overly protective of the current taxi business. Back in 2018, a Korean startup company started a taxi business called Tada. At the time, the taxi drivers union was fiercely opposed. It even led to a number of taxi driver self-immolation suicide. So the government almost outlawed a new Tada business and sided with the existing taxi drivers. But with taxi drivers disappearing from the scene, and it will be difficult for the government to continue to protect the existing taxi drivers. That's it for today's story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give it a heart too. Bye!